Thank you so much for joining us. Really excited about this conversation today. My name is Debra Boggs. I am CEO and founder of D&S Executive Career Management. We are a firm that works with senior level leaders, VP, C-level, board level candidates to prepare for, navigate, and land their high level opportunities. So if you want to learn more about us, Carmen Poff will pop information in the link in the chat here, and also in the chat. I'd love to see where you're joining us from. It's great to see who's with us and who's out there. So please pop in the chat where you're at, where you're joining us from, as we get organized here to talk a little bit about verbal communication to elevate our impact as leaders. Really, really excited for this conversation with Ari Butler. So while you're doing that and we're getting to see who's in the room, I am going to introduce our unbelievable guest today. We've been having a lot of conversations offline, and I'm really, really excited for you all to learn from him. So we're so excited to talk with Ari Butler today because as a communications expert, he has worked with C-level leaders at firms like Goldman Sachs and BlackRock, as well as with presidential candidates, litigators before the Supreme Court, and recently even our own Chief Strategy Officer, Michelle Merritt. Ari is now the founder of the AB3 Group, and he lives in Manhattan with his wife, who is a Broadway director and choreographer, and their two sons. So welcome, Ari. It is so exciting to meet you and to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. Nice to see everyone. I'm from New York City. It says from the chat right there. There's our city. It's great to be here with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some people all over the place. Caroline from France, San Francisco, Portland, Maine, Carmen Poff, New York, Indianapolis. So we've got some, everybody. Oh, San Juan, Puerto Rico. They're all over the place. Love it.
There you go. Welcome.
Yeah. So let's start with, tell me a little bit about the AB3 Group, what you do, who you do it for, and what your work entails.
My pleasure. Look, all of you are leaders. And if you're on this call, you joined because you're leaders who know that communication isn't just a soft skill. It's a key business driver. I'm sure you're all well experienced, educated, you have a high level of expertise, and you hire people for that reason as well.
Mm-hmm.
Your ability to get your ideas heard, though, will be the main differentiator driving the success of your firm and your own career, your own brand. I imagine all of you can picture someone on your team, we'll call that person Sam, that's struggling to get noticed around other talented peers. We all know a Sam. Maybe you've had moments in your life where you felt like Sam as well. You're tenacious. Sam has learned all the materials. They've tried to make all the right moves. Sam has had opportunities to be in the spotlight, but perhaps in those moments has struggled to collaborate effectively, to build connections in a meaningful way, to drive outcomes forward. They felt that their voice has been diminished in the moments that mattered most. I bet you can imagine Sam going into the weekend feeling that they just didn't give people the best that they had to offer. And by the way, Sam is a friendly person. They work hard. They live a careful, full life, but still they long for greater impact. Is everyone thinking of a Sam on your team, or maybe parts of yourself where you have felt like Sam? The AB3 Group, my firm that we're building and we're launching, is there to support the Sams of the world, right? People that know that they have the expertise, the energy, the experience, and are just striving to make a stronger impact.
I love that so much. And that resonates with me so much because in our firm with D&S Executive Career Management, we work with senior leaders. We work with C-level leaders at, the biggest companies in the world, things like that, high visibility startups, things like that. And so for us, when we're hiring a coach or a writer, it's easy to hire for experience. It's really hard to hire for someone who can meet these executives at a peer level in terms of communication and impact and leading these top voices through, their job search or their board search, right? That takes a different level. And so that is always the differentiator for us when we're hiring.
I imagine the experience, the expertise, the education are table stakes.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
Yeah, the interview happens. the QBR happens, the pitch, the interview, the public facing conference speech, whatever it is, and you either live up to people's expectations when they read your CV, your resume, when they read your beautifully crafted email, probably supported by AI, right? They have all these expectations. People should be using AI. Is it like professional malfeasance at this point if you're not crafting beautiful written words? But then you have to walk in the room.
You have to show up. Yes.
Yeah. And you either have a strategy to live up to that or you fall short.
Yeah, that's so important. I was having a conversation with a good friend, past client, Edward Jack, if he's listening, he may be. And he was talking about how, everyone should be able to, there's no excuse to not have a well-crafted email anymore. They're literally free, but you have to walk in and back that up when you're live, and you can't hide behind AI for that. So I'd love to dig in along those lines and talk a little bit about this framework. You and I talked offline around you call it the AI Antidote, like this framework to really elevate the impact in conversations. And I think this is really something that'll resonate with all of our viewers, not only if you're job seeking, but if you're just really looking to elevate your impact in the workplace and in the boardroom. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, when my team and I talk about the AI Antidote, we're not anti-AI.
Yes.
I mean, you'd be going in the wrong direction if you're anti-AI. But as you said, the gap between the people that can live up to what's generated by the computer and walk into a room or log online and show up at that level is getting wider, not shorter, right? The trust gap, the risk you have of being exposed is so much higher. And we're working with organizations that are investing as much in the human ability to communicate a message as the technological ability to analyze data and create a story out of it. So those are the partners that we have. And we're approaching it, whether it's a public facing, spotlighted, high stakes moment or a more intimate conversation that's off the cusp, through the lens of every single one of those interactions. You're either building trust or depleting it, right? And sometimes those are huge swings, right? Your firm, your company, your organization didn't live up to expectations, and you lose just because of your logo. You lose credibility and trust. But sometimes they're small little swings. And we're not here to talk about dating, but we've all given trust to people and lost trust in people for the wildest astrological reasons, right? Reasons you're an Eagles fan, I'm an Eagles fan. Like we've all you're a Pisces, I'm a Pisces. We give people trust for wild reasons and we lose it as well. So whether we're talking about those high stakes, crucial moments, or we're talking about the more off the cuff, improvisational moments, AB3 Group is looking really specifically at what are you doing to prepare to build deeper trust. And I don't know how deep into this you want me to go, Deborah, but we look at it through three lenses.
Perfect. Let's hear it, because I think it's such an important topic.
Okay. My pleasure. We're looking at it first. Well, I won't say first. We often go in this order, but not to say that there's a hierarchy. The first one I'll mention is, of course, credibility. And credibility is earned and lost a lot of the times because of your behavior. You're either someone that follows through and lives up to what you said you were going to do in a high integrity way or not. But from a communication standpoint, you build your credibility if you have stories to back up your platitudes, if you can actually demonstrate that you're not just giving nice sounding ideas, but you actually have a canon of supporting evidence that demonstrates you can live up to it. You build credibility in how you handle pushback. Right? Are you able to connect in a non-defensive way with what that person is expressing they really are concerned about? They're opening up their brain and they're saying, here, I'm watching you talk, but here's what I'm thinking about, right? Can you live in that challenging moment with them? You also build credibility just every time you log online or start to speak, if you can manage your psychological and your emotional mindset, right? Some people fold under pressure and you lose credibility. So that's the communication element of building your credibility as a leader and as a communicator.
And I'd love to push on that just a little bit, or go a little bit deeper on that, because recently I was at the Private Directors Association conference, and we there was a session from two executive recruiters, and they were talking about hiring for a CEO role, and they had two candidates that were perfect on paper, went through the process, everyone loved them. It was really a difficult choice, and so they decided to go a little bit deeper and put them into a high stress situation to see how they communicated with their team under pressure.
The Hunger
And
Games.
one came out on top by far, and the other one kind of caved into himself, got defensive, it was not his best self under pressure. And I think that really matters.
I think that sometimes when someone comes off mute, raises their hand and pushes back on you, they might want an answer. They might be testing your knowledge, but I think really what they're doing is they're seeing if you're someone that they can push back on. Are you someone that just can exist in that moment with them? Can they be ugly with you? Which, isn't a great quality, but that's what they're testing. Like, what's going to be like interacting with you when my system goes down?
Right. Exactly. Oh my goodness. So thanks for letting me kind of go a little bit deeper on that.
Well, I appreciate that. We spend 2-3 days going deeper on that.
Oh, absolutely. We talked offline about how we could go deeper on any one of these topics all day long. This is such a broad topic and so much important information in here. So cutting it into 30 minutes is a lot. If anyone has any questions for Ari as we go through here, though, feel free to pop in the chat.
Yeah, I don't see what's coming in on chat, so I'll rely on you to tell me.
That's fine. I'll take care of it.
Thank you. Do you want me to keep going?
So point number 2, take us through that.
Look, the other way that you build trust is, of course, with the substance of your ideas. Yes. I want to be clear. I want to make the distinction between the substance of your ideas and your competence. We don't ask whether or not you're smart or you're right. We are not a consulting making business plans with leaders. We're asking the question, is anybody listening to you?
Right.
Are you bringing the right substance to a meeting? Does it have a clear structure, a clearly articulated point? And when you're distributing the substance of your ideas, are you doing it in a way that's palatable, digestible?
Yes.
For your listeners? Are you clued into when people are paying attention and when they're not? Are you making it dynamic? We're not teaching leaders to be, circus performers. It's not about entertaining people, but if people are not engaged, they're not thinking about what you're saying.
So true. No, that substance piece is so important, because we often tell our candidates, if you're interviewing for a job, or even when you're putting it on your resume, things like that, we need to show people, not tell people. We can tell people we're an expert in something, but it's when we actually speak on a topic, ask interesting questions, ask thought-provoking questions. Are we showing them that we're an expert in that space?
Yeah, and we see people asking questions all the time. They'll put up a poll, or they'll say put into chat. But asking a question doesn't mean that you're genuinely curious or that you're there to learn from them,
So true.
Just because you say, hey, did you read my email where I told you what I thought? Or why don't you just, and then you just give your opinion. Those have question marks, but it doesn't mean that you're actually curious about what they have to contribute.
Yes, so true.
And to bring to our point, you lose trust, people lose trust in you when you behave that way.
Absolutely. So do you have any thoughts on how to level up the substance of a topic when you're speaking in any high stakes situation?
I have, gosh, I'm going to sound so arrogant. I have no shortage of thoughts, but I'll give you one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you like this. 4 years ago, my wife and I, coming out of the pandemic was hard for all of us in a myriad of reasons. We had a baby 4 months before we went into quarantine. So my wife and I went, coming out of the pandemic, on a double date with another couple. And of course, at the time, we went to see the Barbie movie, which of course, you've probably seen. And after we went to see this movie, of course, masks on with this other couple, we got a table outside on the streets of Manhattan, and 1 bottle of wine turned into 2 bottles of wine. And we sat there and we talked endlessly. And you would think we were talking about, the hardships we endured, what we were looking forward to, how the kids were doing, how our marriages were doing, the amount of things that we could be talking. But what we sat there and we talked about was the Barbie movie. I mean, it was unbelievable. My wife is a rising choreographer,
Yeah.
and director in the Broadway scene, which is still a heavily male-dominated world, believe it or not. So she had a lot of feelings about women empowerment, being a woman in leadership. Right now I'm doing a lot of the talking, but most of my nights I just stand next to her and I go, I know, she's so amazing. Oh, I play proud husband, proudly, genuinely.
Love that.
But I'm her Ken. Like, make no mistakes about it. Like, I had a lot of thoughts about what that exposed. We were shocked. The other couple too had a lot to say about it. Anyway, my point is that is what great art should do. It's to send you go to a museum, you read a book, you send yourself to cafes, and you sit there and you talk about what it meant, what it brought out in you. And that can't happen in business communications. The substance of your ideas shouldn't leave 17 people in your meeting, each with a different interpretation of how it resonated with them. When you communicate as a lead, that's what art does. In business communications, when you're communicating the substance of your ideas, you need everyone on your call, everyone in your meeting, the entire board to leave with clarity and hopefully aimed in the direction that you were trying to meet, which means that you have to know what your point is. If you don't know what your point is, neither do your listeners. It is a nightmare when you get interrupted by someone and says, yeah, Ari, hold on, time out. We've been listening. What is your point? I mean, that is a nightmare scenario. But if you don't know the answer to that question, neither do your listeners. They'll try and figure it out, but they'll probably get it wrong.
That is such an important point, and masterfully told from a story to the point, right? In something that I didn't tell you I was going to ask you ahead of time. So folks, if we're wondering if Ari really has his stuff together, absolutely does.
Oh, no.
I love it. All right. So point number 3 then in this framework of really elevating your impact in communications.
Well, it's the question anyone at any level in your organization is asking every time they log on to a meeting, which on this side of the pandemic, by the way, is like 3 times as much as how they spent their time prior to the meeting, particularly online. But people log on to meetings and they're asking themselves the question, is this going to be a good use of my time? Right? Am I going to endure? Yeah. Am I going to endure this person's deck, or am I actually going to get something valuable for me? Right. And if they're not the most senior person, they probably have to attend your meeting, but senior people just log off. I get invited to a lot of meetings and my first thought is, I'm going to get so much work done during Maggie's meeting, because like I'm going to use it to do busy. So I think the really the first thing that your listeners are thinking about is, what are you motivated by when you start talking? And your motivations are revealed in the language you use, right? Answer their question right from the jump. Will this be useful or not? I imagine, what are there, tens of thousands of people logged on to this call right now? 16 minutes ago, they were asking themselves the question, should I stay logged on to this or not? Right? This is a sign of a healthy brain. You as a communicator, you don't want to assume that people, just because they clicked yes to your LinkedIn Live or your meeting invitation, that they just want to hear what you have to say. You have to earn that each and every time.
And we talked offline. You asked a really great question while we were preparing for this, was how do we know if we were effective in this LinkedIn Live? And I said, our metric is seeing later average watch time. Did people log on and stay? Because that means we were giving good content and a good conversation people felt like was valuable for their time, right? Because if it's not, they're going to log off immediately. They're just going to bounce. And I think that's really important when we think about when we're delivering any message. And for job seekers, board candidates, things like that, it's around, when you're in interviews, when you're writing your resume, our Chief Strategy Officer, Michelle Merritt, always says your resume is about you, but it's not for you. That you're not the audience. And I think that's incredibly important for every communication.
Yeah, your resume is table stakes, but they're not saying, am I getting the most? I don't think they're saying, am I getting the most credible person? They're saying, am I getting the person that's going to help me look good in front of my boss? Is this person going to help me preserve my weekend plans? Or am
Yes.
I going to have to hold their hand too much? Am I going to make more money if I hire this people? And of course, people want you to do well. Mostly people want the organization, the shareholders, to make more money, of course. But let's be real. People are motivated, assuming like the ROI is somewhat level. People
Right.
are motivated by a range of other forces that have nothing to do with your credentials.
Oh my gosh, that's so important. Michelle and I were, hosting our first session of a masterclass for executive job seekers that launched last night. And that was one of the things we talked about is when we talk about our unique value in the market, because credentials aren't enough. 20 years of experience in XYZ industry, as you said, is table stakes, as I say all the time, table stakes. But how are you solving the unique challenges of that industry and also of that hiring manager? Who are you reporting to? And what is keeping them up at night, and how can you solve for that? Because that's honestly, we want to hire someone not just that isn't going to do damage, but is going to make our life easier, make us look good, make the department or company more money. Those things are important.
Yeah. And so one of the questions that leaders bring to this conversation all the time is, yeah, but Ari, how do I know? I've never met this person before. How
Mm-hmm.
do I know? And sure, I mean, you can poke around LinkedIn, the internet sometimes if that person has been public. And I will never get caught saying anything to diminish the idea that we're all extremely unique and our backgrounds and our cultures are always part of the mix, and everything from age to, previous jobs to, of course, all the different ways that makes us diverse.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, there are universal truths about what we care about. I said a moment ago that the language reveals what you're thinking about, whether or not you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about them or you're thinking about you. The way we talk about it at the AB3 Group is when you start talking, and if you buy into this idea that your first job is to align with their motivation, you're either speaking autobiographically, meaning you're
Yes.
talking about yourself, or you're speaking biographically, meaning you're talking about them. And it reveals itself in the language you use. Everyone who's listening still, thank you. Glad you're still here. But if I started today by saying, "Hi everyone, I'm really glad to be here. I would love, I have a lot of ideas and a great deal of experience, and I get to work with, but I'm not overdoing it." That's a lot of how we see meetings being kicked off.
Right.
Maybe go watch the tape. Everyone go watch the tape. What we teach is what I try to do. If you're here, it's
Right.
because right? It's a biographical way of communicating where you try to tell the other person's story. There's a big difference between saying, "At today's meeting, I want to,"
Right.
versus saying, "You scheduled this meeting, I believe, because you were hoping to hear more information about." They both get you to your first slide, but one says, "I did my homework," and the other one says, "I'm showing up today for you."
Right.
That's what we mean by aligning with their motivation.
Mm-hmm. That's so important. And I love your point about autobiographical versus biographical,
I had
right?
to,
And we see
I had
this.
to practice it too. It's hard to get out of your mouth.
It is. It does not roll off the tongue easily at all. But it's interesting because we see this so often in interviews, even for the most senior leaders, people going for these CEO roles, anything C-level. It doesn't matter if you're not used to reframing in the way that actually meets the needs of your speaker, then it's really falling flat. Then it's just, if I say, tell me about yourself, and you go into 15 minutes of everything you've ever done, no one cares, right? And we need to really focus on the pieces that matter.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, I mean, I have some of that East Coast cynicism. No one cares as well, but it's really hard for smart people to believe that or know how to rotate around that. Look, everyone logged online because it said, "Come, Ari Butler will talk about verbal community," but no one wants to meet me. I assume everyone's here because they're looking for something that'll help them. Same thing's true when you get invited to a meeting, or you get invited to give a keynote address, or get requested as a SME, a subject matter expert, to come and present highly technical information. You can make the mistake that people actually want to hear what you have to say, and they eventually do. They
Right.
eventually do. But first, they want to know that you understand what actual problem that information you're going to offer them is supporting. They don't want to endure your deck. They want to drink up your deck and your speech if they feel like it's going to actually help them.
They don't want to endure your deck. I love that. So Norma Davila, who is our director of coaching, popped in the chat here. I'm showing up today for you is a great way for job seekers to consider when they're interviewing. That just really reframes the conversation to make sure that you're focusing on the audience and then the end goal, right? The end goal of an interview isn't so that that person knows your entire background. The goal of the interview is to land a job.
And it can't feel like, people don't want to feel techniqued either.
Right.
I mean, my wife will often say to me, well, we're happily married 27 years, but we argue, of course, that's actually part of our happy marriage. Sometimes she'll say, don't you AB3 me. And I don't take that to mean, don't make me feel heard. Don't acknowledge what I'm saying. What she's saying is, I don't want to see your technique.
Right. I don't need you to go through the framework of influence with me.
Right. But there's something important there. Right, which is that when you do this work well, it feels authentic and genuine and not like a technique. And that's the reason why there's a big gap between those of you listening, nodding your head, and Debra coming off and saying this is really important, and actually practicing doing it. Right. And so if anyone's interested in knowing about the work that AB3 does, it's not just that we have ideas that are real world tested and proven and trusted. It's because we take the time to look at how they actually apply authentically in your business context. Practice is what matters.
It absolutely does, because you have to be comfortable with it. It can't be something that feels rehearsed or it's going to really fall flat. And so with a couple of minutes we have left today, tell me about how this would look in practice with the work that you do with, say, a company. I know you said you do a lot of work with teams. What does that look like?
Yeah, thank you. Just to say, we work one-on-one with executives all the time.
Perfect.
Usually what happens then is the executive will say, can you work with my team? And it is our pleasure, a particular pleasure, when we can not only just support one leader in reaching his or her goals, but help them cascade this and raise the communication fabric of their organizational culture. Right? When you put people in a room, you say, how do we want to show up for each other? Are we certain that every leader in this room, we don't have to all be saying the same words, but are we singing from the same songbook? Do we have a strategy to convert that melody line to all the various different audiences that we face? Do we have a mechanism to give supportive feedback to one another? So look, some leadership is absolutely performative. That's a bit of a derogatory word, right? Because it implies inauthenticity. But you step into the spotlight as a leader and people have to stand behind your ideas. There's also a human-centered, more intimate, more improv, quieter form of leadership. And I would say that one of the things that AB3 is doing frequency that I think differentiates us is that we're looking at that side of leadership as well. Your ability to have truly consultative conversations, to create environments where everyone, even the quietest people on your team, can thrive, where you tell stories that aren't just about your success, but they reveal your vulnerability so people know how you got here. What are you open to sharing? It's a vulnerable, intimate form of leadership that we're focused on as well. And we do that in large groups. We do it in small cohorts. We do it virtual. We do it live. There's no right. You should fire any consultant that says there's one right way to do this. But there are ways that work and there are ways that don't. And we're very clear about what doesn't work as well.
Right. And that's so helpful, because I think, there's a lot of different ways that people can engage, with the leadership team. And one of the things that we suggest to our executive candidates when you're interviewing for a role, to tell if there's alignment on a team, in all of your interviews, ask the same question of everyone separately. Are they aligned with the mission of the company or the role of that, that they're filling? Or, are there red flags in the huge swings? And same thing with board candidates. If you're interviewing to join a board, it's good to know if the board is in alignment with just at least the North Star of where everyone is headed. And so, when you talk about that alignment and making sure everyone's singing from the same page, really makes sense.
Yeah. Good.
So To wrap up, we've gotten to the half-hour point. Michelle Merritt put your contact information in the chat, but tell us how we can find you.
Well, it's right there, theab3group.com, or no surprise, Ari at theab3group.com, or LinkedIn. You'll find me if you look for me. The AB3Group.com.
Perfect.
We're not the first thing that'll show up on Google yet, but
We're working on it. Yeah, absolutely.
you'll find us if you look for us.
And while I don't have a resource for communications yet, I know we did talk a lot about board work, and I know there's a lot of executives on this call. So if anyone's thinking about launching their board career, we do have a resource on helping you think through the 3 big questions to help answer, are you board ready? So if you want to take a look at this, this can help you think about whether it's right for the next step in your career. And while everyone takes a look at that, Ari, it was absolutely a pleasure to talk to you today. This was so much fun. I'm so glad we had the opportunity. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your framework with us. I think it was really helpful.
My goodness, what a pleasure. Nice to meet all of you. I hope to hear from you.
Sounds great. Thanks, everyone.